So getting a new puppy is exciting, but also nerve-wracking, and knowing what it is that you should be doing can be confusing and overwhelming. So let's look at how I'm going to go about training this amazing 8-week-old Connie Corso puppy Zelda in her first 24 hours, talk about the things that you should be doing yourself with your puppies to set you up for the most amount of success possible. So absolutely one of the main things that you should be focusing on day one with your puppy is toilet training, and that is something that you absolutely can start as you mean to go on with. Now, I'm not a big fan of puppy pads because I do think that if you can take a few days off with your puppy, there's absolutely no reason that your dog should ever have an accident, and I'm all about getting them on grass as quickly as possible. And that is exactly what we brought Zelda out for. I could tell that she was sniffing a little bit. I was seeing some of the signs, and I'm just going to bring her out and I'm just going to let her have a little bit of time on the grass. Now, while we're out here, there is lots going on. There's somebody mowing down there. The wind is whipping up. It's making funny noises. So we're getting a little bit of opportunity for some socialization here. I'm not surprised. She's most likely going to stay in and around me. She wants me to pick her up because that's warm and comforting for her. But we're just going to give her lots of opportunities, and I'm just going to try and not let her kind of settle and sit next to me. Now, when it comes to toilet training, there are a few other tips and tricks when it comes to it, but for me, the big rule of thumb is on the hour, every hour when you bring them home. One of the first things I do is on my phone, I literally set an alarm for on the hour, every hour. And when that alarm goes off, no matter what I'm doing, I stop what I'm doing, I pick the puppy up, I bring them out to the grass. And I spend a few minutes out here. She's getting to watch, we're doing a little bit of socialization, she's learning. She'll start to learn to kind of follow me. Oh, Zelda, are you coming? Yeah, good girl, good girl, good girl, good girl. And whenever she kind of does that, yeah, good girl, I'm going to come in and give her a bit of a chin scratch, always building the foundations of recall and kind of following me as a loving leader. But at some point, she might go for a number 1 or a number 2. And when she does that, we're going to praise and we're going to reward her for doing so. Absolutely superb. After meal times, it's a really good idea to take them out. When they've just woken up from a nap, really good idea to take them out. And if you do that, you're observational, you use your crate training we're going to talk about later, there's absolutely no reason why your puppy should ever have a toilet accident in the home. Now, if they ever do have a toilet accident in the home, I want you to focus on making sure that we don't punish them for it. It's not the time and it's not the place and it's not successful. We want to make sure that we clean it up thoroughly and we embrace that that was our bad. We made a mistake. We weren't observational enough. We weren't watching properly. We didn't get them out in time. If you embrace the ownership of if that goes wrong, that's on you, it's not a mistake that the puppy's made, you'll be setting both of you up for long-term success. So with toilet training, absolutely start that in your first 24 hours. Be calm, be consistent, reward them when they do go to the toilet. If they have mistakes in the house, learn from it, make sure that doesn't happen again and clean it thoroughly to remove the scent. But little girl's just had a number 1 now, so as she finishes this, oh, good girl, yes, good girl, who's a good girl. I'm going to reward, I'm going to praise. Now we're going to take her back in and we're going to carry on working on some obedience work. So this is beautiful, even though the goal of this session is to get her to settle down. This is a beautiful example. There we go, amazing. I'm really happy that we got that. Even though she's not snoozing, she's playing with a toy, but this is beautiful because she's building up this idea that I just need to be relaxed in here in the crate and that it is good in the crate. I get nice toys, she's had a little chew, and just her mind's now just embracing this. And even if she's not fully ready to settle down and sleep yet, she definitely will be in a position, I might just have a little chew, and when that will kind of bring that down a little bit more, and we're going to get to this point, which I'm super happy about. Now, the key is at this point is I don't really want to interrupt this now. While she was kind of a bit more engaged and awake, I was praising her, I was bringing food in. Now, what might happen here is if I go to praise her, if I go to give her some food, it might get her up. And what I want to do in this moment is just be in this moment. This is beautiful. Again, I had the lead that if she starts to build, I can just interrupt that. But as we go through this process, this was maybe 10 or 15 minutes, very first crate training session ever. And we've got to a point where she's now happy, lying down in a crate, yawning. I would wager that she's going to fall asleep in 5 minutes, and then we're going to let her have a snooze. When she wakes up, take her out for some toilet training. We're going to do a little bit more obedience work. We'll maybe do a bit of socialization, might get Uncle Sully out, do some role model dog stuff. She'll then get really tired again, and we come back in the crate. And we repeat this process, and in the first day you can do this 5 or 6, 7, 8 times, and by the end of that day it's absolutely amazing because they go in the crate and they just go straight to this. So the first one's a little bit more of a battle, and then as the day goes on they just accept, oh, this is what I do. When I'm in a crate, I relax, I settle down, and you build that in from day one, and it's amazing. This will be a life changer to people because she'll sleep better tonight, first night in that crate, which means you sleep, which means that you won't be as frustrated, you won't be as angry, which means that you can remain a calmer leader, you can focus on the training, focus on the socialization, focus on the manners, and you're not just frustrated and pulling your hair out. And one of the amazing things is that this is the recipe to preventing separation anxiety. So yes, although you want them to fall asleep on you on day one, you want to cuddle them, you don't necessarily want to kind of rattle the cage, rattle the crate, interrupt her when she's building a little bit. This is what will stop her from having separation anxiety. So within a few days, first week or two, we will be at a point where we can leave her and she'll just settle in a crate. And then as she becomes an adult dog, you can start to go out for hours at a time and she's happy being alone. She's falling asleep right now. This warms my heart going through this process, and being able to kind of film that and document it live with you guys is amazing. I think if the cameraman comes in now, she is fallen asleep. So we work through that kind of live together, just with some very basic training principles. And as you can see, she's happy, content, and willing to relax now in the crate, which is absolutely beautiful. Again, yes, we challenged some of the times where she was getting frustrated. Yes, we had to rattle the cage a few times, but she's now fast asleep in a crate. That, to me, doesn't look like a dog that is fearful of a crate, is unhappy in a crate. That, to me, looks like a dog that is happily snoozing and relaxed. Calm, content canine companions that we've achieved through a little bit of leadership, a little bit of communication of what it is that we do want from her and what it is that we don't want from her. And this is insane. Now, let me talk about where this could have gone wrong and where it does go wrong with 99% of dog owners, puppy owners. The people that have had many, many dogs make this mistake. In that situation where you saw that she was crying earlier, some people just ignore it. But the problem is a dog like this might get worse and worse and persist and persist and persist. And eventually you need to let them out. Eventually you need to take them to the toilet. Eventually you need to feed them. And what that can teach them very quickly is that persistence is key. If I cry and bark for hours, eventually I get what I want. Or as soon as they start to cry when they go in the cage, you go in and go, what's the matter? It's okay. You open the cage and you get them out. Again, you've taught them that crying is what gets them what they want. What we've done here is we've interrupted that on day one, very first session. We've let her know that's not going to be what gets you what you want, mate. We've also been really fair to her and gone, that's what will get you what you want. It's when she was sat, when she was quiet, when she was relaxed, when she was just observing things calmly, she got praise, she got treats, she got food. And she's already learning, to get what I want, I just have to be calm. I just have to have good manners. I just have to sit quietly and patiently, and I get the things that I want. If I'm obnoxious, if I'm bad-mannered, if I'm loud, if I bark, if I cry, then that gets interrupted, and I don't like that. I want to get what I want. I've learnt that's how I get what I want, so I'll just do that instead. And they're always going to choose the path of least resistance. And if you can make it clear to them from day one that the path of least resistance to them getting what they want, which is what we want to give them, we want to give them praise, we want to give them treats, we want it to be really fun, but the path of least resistance to get there is to be calm, quiet, well-mannered, then absolutely superb. We all win. So again, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to hang out, I'm going to kind of get up and potter around in this first session. I don't really want her to wake up and be completely alone, even if I'm over at the other side of the centre. She'll know that I'm around. When I see that she's woken up, I'll come back and I'll wait for her to be quiet. If she does start crying, again, I'll interrupt it and I'm going to look for 10 to 20 seconds of calm quiet. Then I'm going to open the crate, I'm going to pick her up and I'm going to take her straight to need in the toilet, because when she wakes up from this nap, that is what she's going to need. And we are already way down the right track to being able to have a perfect canine companion, because this is why it's a mandatory piece of my training system. I cannot stress enough how important this is if you want to have a perfect canine companion. and it can start from day one, or it can start going horribly wrong from day one. The choice is yours. Now, there is loads more to crate training than what we just discussed. I understand you might really want to know kind of the exact step-by-step guide, and there's so much more to that than we can cover in a short little video like this on YouTube. I created a completely free course called The Principles of Puppy Training that breaks down more exactly what you need to do so that you can follow those tutorials step by step. And then in these videos, I'm going to show you more kind of the results of all of that work, because we don't have the time to go through each individual kind of step as a tutorial, because they might be 10, 15, 20-minute videos in and of themselves. But when it comes to obedience, let's just talk about some of the basic things that we're going to be working on in day one. Now, for Zelda here, the thing that I want to get her doing is a couple of things. I've just got a little bit of her food with me here, and all I want her to start doing in day one is what I call this, following a law, of just luring her slightly, and when she follows it, she's just going to get a little bit of a reward. That's one of the things that we're going to work on in day one. Good girl. Then there's going to be another thing that we're going to work on, which is what I kind of call charging my marker. Again, in those courses, we break down all of these things in much more detail. But I want to start being able to mark desirable behaviors, and that could be a clicker. For me, I like to use yes. So I'm going to start the principle of using a little bit of food like this, getting her attention. I'll wait for her to finish her little scratch. Bless her, getting used to a new collar. Zelda? Getting her attention. Yes. And then food. And we're going to repeat that process, and it's really boring. Yes. And food. And she's going to start, what's called classical conditioning. Again, we won't waste time in this video talking about that, but we're going to charge that mark that yes equals really good things are going to happen, which is going to allow us to mark behaviors for our obedience long term. But again, that's not what this video is. They're kind of two main bits of obedience I want to be focusing on. And then the third thing is that I'd really like to start the principle of teaching a sit command. What are you doing down there? So again, we're starting this principle of having her follow a law. Then, when she's following the law, we can go up and over her head. Yes. And she gets the reward. So that was her first ever sit. Really, really beautiful. And I wanted to make sure I did it right and focusing on her, but trying to show you guys as well at the same time. So again, following the law, lovely. She offered me going up and over. Yes. And the second her bum touches the floor, I can then use this marker word of yes, and then she gets access to the treat. Let's show you one more time. Yes. Brilliant. And we're going to stop there. And what we start to do is we practice this over and over again until we get to a point where she really just starts going into that sit really quickly. She understands exactly what it is that I'm asking of her. But once we have that behavior starting to show itself where she's kind of automatic, as soon as we start to move, she's going to start to sit. We can then add our cue to that equation. And again, in that course, we talk about all of these steps in detail, and you can kind of follow that along. But in terms of the things that you're going to be focusing on in day one, they're going to be the main things of obedience I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be charging my marker. I'm going to be teaching her how to law and to follow a law. No suicide dives, please, girl. Don't you go diving off the back of there. And then we're going to start using the idea of teaching a sit command. When we can teach a sit, so much more then comes on from that when we start to think about our manners and other pieces of obedience later on. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? You are adorable. You're doing very well. Very well. So that was an amazing first little sit session, and I'm genuinely going to be keeping obedience sessions that short. Just doing a few little reps, keeping it fun, keeping her engaged, making sure we're working on our toilet training, then getting plenty of time in the crate to kind of settle down, relax. Dogs, puppies of this age need to sleep loads because they're growing so much and there's so much going on in their minds. And obedience, it doesn't matter. We can take time. There's no rush. We don't need to teach everything on day one. We don't need to confuse her. We don't need to frustrate her. Just start laying the foundations of the basics from day one, and we're going to be absolutely flying, aren't we, mate? Now, I know there is a lot to think about when it comes to day one, bringing your new puppy home, and I'm chuffed to bits with the progress that we've made with crate training Zelda. If I'm being honest, that's probably my priority on day one, having worked and trained with so many puppies. I just know that that sets you up for so much success. Toilet training is going brilliantly. We've had a bit of fun with obedience, but there's no real massive rush with that thing. Now, this is something that I personally do on the first 24 hours, but I definitely understand that not everybody has access to this. And obviously, you have to make sure that you're careful with things like your vaccination protocols and the vet recommendations. But I like to get puppies involved with my pack of role model dogs as quickly as possible. Now, my best role model dog by far is Uncle Sully, and if I'm being honest, Uncle Sully's probably going to do way more training with this puppy in the first day than I'm going to be able to. It's also going to allow me to observe Uncle Sully, and he's going to allow me to really do a thorough temperament kind of understanding of beautiful little Zelda here. So what we're going to move into next is some socialization with other dogs, and luckily for Zelda, she's going to get socialization with the best role model dog that anybody could ever hope for. So if you wouldn't mind just letting Sully over, please, Nana. Now, if you're going to do anything with role model dogs for socialization, it is really important that you carefully select the dog. Now, with this, I trust Uncle Sully so much that I'm really just going to step back and let this unfold, let this play out, and let Uncle Sully work his magic. Stay. Break. And I'm just going to stand back and observe. I'm going to see how the puppy is going to handle this. And I'm going to watch kind of what Uncle Sully is doing in these moments. So obviously he's very interested. And what's beautiful about Uncle Sully for me, the reason I use him for these purposes, is because he is assertive. He is a confident male Labrador, but he has a really nice, as you can see here, playful demeanor. So it's a really nice balance between the puppy understanding the pack dynamics, but being involved with a dog that is gentle, but will draw a line. You can see that Zelda here is slightly more unsure, being a rescue puppy. That does make sense, but Uncle Sully will bring her out, and he'll adapt himself to how she is. So as you can see already, he's going to be settling himself down, and he'll want to bring her out of her shell. And that's lovely to see. She's taken a minute, and as you see, Sully is already regulating his energy. He understands, okay, she's not boisterous. So much happened in that initial interaction of him making her understand what the situation is, what the rule is, what the pack dynamic is here. And they're just going to work this out. And again, you'll watch, it's really beautiful. They'll check in and out with each other. He'll instigate, do you want to play? No, I don't. And he'll back off a little bit, and he'll just vibe with it. Now, if she was a super playful puppy, when Sully first went in and it was quite confident, he would have simmered that down, and he would have put her into the kind of energy that he would expect her to be. But because she's more the opposite way around, if anything, she's quite passive and timid, he's now turned into this, which will start to bring her up. We're coming to the end of the first day with Zelda here, and it's gone absolutely beautifully. We're going to let her settle down in the crate here now, and then it'll be time to kind of go home, and all that's going to happen is we're going to get a toilet break, we're going to finish our last meal. Then once we finish that last meal, we're going to do another toilet break, and then it's time to go into the crate for bedtime and settle down for the evening. When it comes to settling down for the evening, because of all the hard work we've done with crate training so far, it's going to go super smoothly. I know that the owners are going to go through a process of using the crate next to the bed to start with, so out for the toilet, into the crate, next to the bed, and then bedtime. Once we've got a few nice nights under our belt, they're just going to slowly each night start moving the crate further and further away. But again, from the start of the day, where it took us ages to get her to settle down, now she's going straight in and settling down immediately, which again is absolutely my priority when it comes to day one, first 24 hours, because now the owners, and if this was my puppy, we can get some sleep tonight, which is brilliant. We're going to get up maybe in the middle of the night to let them out for the toilet. Some puppies actually can just snooze straight through. I'd be expecting to get up though 4 or 5 a.m., let them out, and then the day's just going to rotate like that again. And that is as simple as it needs to be. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Get your crate training in. Make sure your toilet training's rock solid. Have your obedience plan in place before you bring your puppy home, so you know what you're going to be doing. And the reality is that it isn't really that much that you need to do, especially on day one. Be calm, consistent, and start setting them up for success from day one. That's the most important piece of the puzzle. Now we're going to be documenting Zelda's journey all the way through from literally first day through to perfect canine companion. So if you are new here, subscribe. We'll see you next week for the next episode, and you can come along on this journey and see step by step how we go from a puppy like this through to a perfect canine companion like Uncle Sully.